kind of like as I kind of got out of school, like I started recording more and then not playing guitar as much. And, you know, at some point, like they kind of met, and then recording kind of took over and guitar took a back seat. And, you know, and
I like your hand gestures.
Yeah,
they're helping.
I know it's on a
for
podcast,
the audience,
but, you know,
it's good. Yeah.
But, yeah, so that's kind of what happened. So it's a little bit hard to say like this was the spot, because, you know, for a long time, like, you know, like I feel with anybody starting out with recording or just being in music, like there's a long time, like years, that I was just kind of taking literally anything that I could get if I thought that I was sort of qualified for it, just to be able to pay the bills. And I like had a part-time job at a church until sometime like this last year. Like it was a long time, you know, just like something to, you know, just one thing that's steady in case, you know, stuff dried up. And it was great, and I'm really thankful for that. Yeah, and then, you know, over time, like I had enough mixing work and stuff that I realized that I probably shouldn't take some of the playing gigs, because I had a really great guitar friend put it, a guitar player friend who's like way good, put it this way. He's like, man, I just kind of quit doing in-town gigs because, you know, you get paid $100, but then you have to learn 10 songs for this thing, and I just couldn't justify the amount of time that I had to spend playing it. And this guy's like top tier session guitar guy. You know, he was like, I'm just not going to go show up to a gig unprepared, and I just can't do it. So he only takes like longer runs or like studio work and stuff like that. And I was kind of feeling the same thing, you know, like, like being a player is really fun. You know, I also like I did some songwriting and some singer-songwriter stuff, and I really enjoy doing that. I enjoy that a lot more than doing like sideman guitar playing. But there was a moment where I was like, I think this is kind of what I want to focus on as a guitar player, is kind of guitar as composition. So focusing more on like chord voicings and writing and things like that, rather than like the actual like delivery, like live in the moment stuff. Like I like performing, but I know a lot of people that really have the performing bug, and I just don't have it in the same way. And so I really feel like at home, you know, working on recordings and stuff. I like to talk about being like a mix engineer, or I mean, even a like recording engineer, kind of like being a conductor, like, except it's not in real time. You know, you're saying like, here, come up here, come up there, and you're really shaping the arc of the song, but you don't have the pressure of like, okay, this has to happen right now. Yeah,
let me just go back and redo that automation move.
Yeah.
You know, no big deal.
Totally.
I totally feel that. Also, with what your friend was saying, was like, I just can't do the town gigs anymore. Sometimes, like I've heard this from other like business podcasts, is like sometimes you got to walk past a smaller pile of money to get to a bigger pile of money. Or sometimes you have to see, like, you know, and I've, you know, this is stuff that I've noticed also with me, is like, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So sometimes when I'm working on something, like, if it's low budget, I end up working just as hard as I would if it was a big budget. So it's like,
oh yeah,
why am I like, it's bad for me to take these low budget projects, because then I end up just spending way too much time for that budget. You know what I mean?
Totally.
You know,
man, like the thing that's so hard about that is like, I hate saying that on a podcast, because, you know, like part of the reason that I get to work on some of the stuff that I've gotten to work on is because I've done those low budget projects. You know, like it's really been recently that I've been like, you know, looking at some gigs and being like, okay, like I'll do this, but like, here are the parameters, you know, or, hey, like I just can't do this for this amount. Cause I know that I'm going to, you know, like I'm going to do the best that I possibly can. And then we're going to, I don't know, when you've had enough emails with clients, I don't know if you have this, but I can kind of feel out whether there's going to be a lot of revisions or not.
Yeah, sure.
Before you start, you know, like that kind of
the
stuff.
First phone call,
Oh yeah, you just know, you're like, okay, this is going to be one of those. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it or that the music's bad.
For sure.
Yeah,
sometimes it's worth it anyways.
Totally. And I mean, frankly, with revisions, sometimes their ideas are better than mine. You know, they've had to live with the song longer, and sometimes my instincts aren't as good as the artist or the producer. Sometimes they
it's
are.
also their song, you know, like if you're just mixing, you know,
totally.
it's like, this is okay. I'm like, mixing is like a service at the end of the day. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so basically mixing and audio just kind of overtook the whole music thing. And then, but before we get into, I guess, like your Scary Pockets thing, was there like a moment where you're just like, oh, this is really working. Like this audio thing is taking off, like the aha moment,
Oh,
Did that
yeah.
happen?
Shoot. I feel like that's happened multiple times. Okay, so last year, the year before, I mixed the Vulfpeck Madison Square Garden record.
Oh, yeah, that was on my question list, yeah.
Yeah, and so, I was working with, like, Scary Pockets and Pomplamoose are not, like, small bands. Like, I didn't take that lightly at all. But I think with Pomplamoose, like, I knew Jack because he's in Scary Pockets, and so it kind of made sense. But like when there's a lot of Jacks in this story.
This is the Jacks, multiple Jacks.
Like when Stratton hit me up to mix that, like it was like, oh shoot, like people are actually listening to this stuff, because it's kind of hard to know, like when you're just recording it and then doing, like we played some live shows and it was fun to get people out, and like I knew the Vulfpeck guys a little bit because like Ryan. I was introduced to him through Ryan Lerman and stuff like that. They're just around. So like I knew him a little bit, but it was a huge honor to be asked to like work on that stuff. So that was a big one. And then the other one, it was kind of a smaller gig that like probably nobody has heard, but I got hit up like randomly by like Lake Street Dive to mix a live performance that I don't think was released as a record. It was kind of like one of those one time on some streaming service, like paid for fans, like a concert. But they hit me up to mix that, and it was like, oh, like wow, like I've been listening to them for a long time. Like they're really good. Like it's just a
they're great.
Huge honor,
What a vocalist, eh?
Oh yeah, Rachel's amazing. She's so good.
Man, that video, what was it? That Jackson 5 cover that that blew up on the internet.
Uh-huh.
Everyone was freaking out when that came out.
Oh yeah, it was so good. I remember that. Somebody showed me that, and I totally remember watching that for the first time. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. It's like goosebumps on the vocal.
Totally.
I mean, everything about it worked, not just the vocals, obviously, but like I think specifically the vocals were giving people the goosebumps,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I guess those are serious aha moments.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term. So basically, because you were around and you were like able to like drop everything on a dime and just like show up, you kind of got your first, I guess, most consistent gig.
Yeah.
That you've had. Mm-hmm. It's just like the opportunity came and you were ready.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I knew I wanted to do freelance work, so I just made sure that like all of the sort of regular jobs that I had that kind of flexibility. And frankly, I got that call on a Saturday, so it wasn't a big deal to move stuff around. I didn't have any other gigs that day.
Nice.
So, but yeah, like that was kind of my goal. Like it wasn't totally an accident that I was available. Like I'd kind of made a point to like arrange my life so I could do that if I needed to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it also, like, just because Jack Conte is clearly such a visionary, he must have seen something in, the way you work that he wanted to keep working with you. Like, what do you think that was that he saw in you?
Okay, so I the first session that I didn't mix any of the songs from it. I think they went home and like mixed those. And then they asked me back the next month, and like all month I was hoping like, oh shoot, I hope they call me back for this next one. And because it wasn't like I just showed up and then it was like, you have the gig forever. Like I did a good job on the first one. And then the second one, like on the first one, they recorded in Ableton, which I'd never worked in Ableton before. And so that freaked me out. But then the second one, they like were in Pro Tools, and I'm super at home in Pro Tools. And like, I figured out Ryan's gear really quick because I had a similar setup, and like we were recording at his studio. So I figured out all that stuff. And then like afterwards, I was hanging out, just being helpful, like wrapping mic cables and all that jazz. And I heard Jack and Ryan saying like, oh shoot, we got to get a song out tomorrow from this session. And I don't have time to mix it. Do you have time to mix it? He's like, I can't do it tonight. And so I chimed in and was like, hey, why don't you give it to me and I'll mix it. And I will have no hard feelings if you choose not to use it. And I, just kind of put it out as a no pressure. like there wasn't any money involved, like that sort of deal. And so I mixed it, and like I can't remember. No, I could find it. Which one was that? I think it might have been Happy. And I mixed it. And in retrospect, it's like super duper duper punchy. Like the kick and snare is so loud, and they hit super hard and stuff. But they dug it, and you know, like they had me mix more off of that session, and you know, I just kind of made a point. Like I just texted Ryan to make sure I could be free on those session days for the next, you know, like 6 or 8 months. I think I only had to miss one, and I didn't want somebody else to do better than me. You know, I wanted to be the guy on that gig.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
I feel that.
Yeah, totally. Like you know, there's tons of guys that could have done the same deal, but you know, it just ended up being a good relationship, and it was fun working with them, and I think they liked working with me. And like we did the first Scary Goldings record that summer, and man, that's like one of my favorite things that I've gotten to like work on. But like, man, mixing that was a trip. Like me and Ryan like went back and forth a lot. Like talk about a project with a lot of revisions. That is one of them. But man, I love the way that thing turned out. And I think I got to be better as like a mixer, and, you know, like a mixer as artist a little bit. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like some mix jobs are kind of more art jobs than other mix jobs. Like some mix jobs, you just need to turn stuff up, but other mix jobs, you really want to shape and make something cool out of. And I learned a lot doing that one. And then, you know, from there, it eventually just became kind of more of a, like, I'm the dude that records this stuff. And this last year, I'm head of audio for Scary Pockets, which basically means I do like a bunch of admin stuff as well. But I mix a lot of it. I engineer all the sessions. And I sort of just make sure I'm kind of one of the filters that everything goes through. And, you know, it's more formalized at this point. But, you know, for a while, it was kind of just a gig, and was doing a bunch of other stuff and making it happen. But, yeah, it was a process, cool. Man. It's super fun. Like
you showed up. You were a good guy. You were fun to hang with. You know, you helped out. You wrapped cables, and like you just kept showing up. And then you built trust over time. You know,
absolutely.
I think that's like the lesson.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, I also I think in order to be an engineer, you kind of have to be a little bit like detail oriented and stuff. And I have this really deep fear of stuff going horribly wrong. So like, you know, on session days, I was like, I'm always like on, like I'm just paying attention the whole time. Can be kind of difficult to talk to because I'm kind of zeroed in on stuff. Like I'm good at
that sounds like me.
Yeah, totally. But it's not, you know, it's not because I'm trying to ignore people or anything like that. It's just because I really, really want everything to go really well. And so, I don't know that it's my fault or just, you know, the luck of the draw or whatever, but I also didn't have any like catastrophic failures. Like, so that's also good.
Yeah. Show it up. Hopefully nothing goes wrong.
Yeah. It's all about like not having catastrophic failures and then getting better over time. Like if you can do those two things, like I feel like there's a lot of gigs that'll keep you around.
Yeah. I love it. So I guess now that we've kind of covered that kind of background of your story, I am curious about your process with mixing Scary Pockets, because I know they do a lot of songs in one day and they try to release them really quickly, fast turnarounds. Mm-hmm. And I also noticed that you master most of the mixes that you mix, which is a whole other trip in and of itself, I imagine. You know, I guess, how does it work? Like, what's the time frame like, and how do you deal with that, like, lack of objectivity from just lack of time?
Oh, right. Okay, so one thing is that the more recent ones in the last probably year and a half, we're actually ahead of schedule. So like it still ends up being a ton of songs, and I'm always working on stuff. But there's not the sort of like we have to get this out tomorrow that there used to be. Okay, so time frame session, we get done with the session, and these days what happens is the next day, or like all kind of take a look at like the usable takes, and then what I'm doing is I'm sending them to our video editor and just doing like rough mixes. So just trying to get the idea of the song across, but I'm not spending any time like leveling stuff out, or I'm fixing like the big problems and doing some sort of just basic EQ, but it's more of just a board mix. And then we're sending that to the video